Hi everyone, in this video we are going to go over the general layout as well as the general styles for this project. So here is the empty VS Code that I've opened up here. Now keep in mind that the link to the entire code or to the resource files for this project is down in the description. It is in the description for all the videos pertaining to this website. So if you want at any point in time, if you want to go ahead and download the entire project, there's going to be a link to a Google Drive. You can just take a look at that in the description. And there is a link to the GitHub. So you can go ahead and download the zip version from Google Drive, or you can basically grab the code from GitHub as well. And that is in case you want to take a look at the project. But if you don't want to take a look at it and you just want to code along with me, that is fine as well, any way you want. So I'm just going to jump into creating the layout, and then we are going to come up with the styles, the color palette, the values for padding, for font size. This is a larger project than the project that we have had in our than the first project for this tutorial series. This is going to be bigger than that one, and there's going to be a lot more styles, a lot more lines of code, and a lot more customization, which I'm going to explain, of course, all like step by step. So first off, I'm going to create, now in here we have all of these folders, and all of the images or all of the assets, they have been neatly organized within these folders. So there is the work, team, sign up, sign in. Now for the sign up, I wanted to create that. Here is the JPEG for the sign up. So I told you that I'm going to leave it up to you, so you can go ahead and actually practice creating projects. And I just provided you with the picture for the sign up. It is going to look almost the same as the sign in, but the form inputs, they're going to be different. Basically, nothing is going to be different. So nothing else is going to be different. So I'm just going to leave this here. I'm not going to delete it, so you can have it and you can go ahead and play around and create a sign up page. And we have all of the images right here. Now, first off, I'm going to create an index.html page. Now, these projects, they contain a little bit of JavaScript. That JavaScript is not a lot of JavaScript. That is very simple, very easy. And if you don't know anything about JavaScript at first, you can just go ahead and basically copy paste it. And you can take a look at my JavaScript tutorial on my channel. You can look it up. You can go ahead you can study JavaScript as well. Actually, this is recommended that after you learn HTML, CSS, you create projects with HTML and CSS, and then you need to jump into JavaScript. So the next step is JavaScript anyway. So let's just dive into this project. Now, first I'm going to create an empty boilerplate, and I'm going to name this project TechD. So TechD. I'm just going to name that TechD. Now, the way that we actually inserted our icons in the previous project was I told you to go ahead and to create a Font Awesome account. Now, in this lecture, I'm going to share with you a CDN for Font Awesome. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. It is basically a channel through which you can select or you can utilize assets from an online source. So I'm just going to name it Font Awesome CDN. Now this CDN, it doesn't have any kind of limitations. You don't need to go ahead and create a Font Awesome account. And Font Awesome is required if you want to use icons, which are in the format of fonts. And you can customize them like fonts. All the font properties also apply on the icons. And they're very performant, they're very light. I'm going to teach you all about them in this project as well. So then we are going to jump in and we are going to provide our Google Font link, Google Fonts link. And in here in this project, I'm going to be using two fonts. And one is going to be Montserrat or Montserrat, however you want to pronounce it. So Montserrat, and the other one, which is going to have 100 all the way to 900 weights, and then it is going to be Varta, the second one, that is going to have 300 to 700 weights. We are going to use these two fonts. Next up, let's go ahead and let's create our style.css file. And we need to link that as well. So I'm going to say CSS file. So link style.css. Let's save that. I'm going to create our app.js file as well. And within the body, at the end of the body, I'm going to link the JavaScript file as well. So I'm going to say JavaScript script file. And I'm going to say script that has a source of app.js. There we go. So everything is properly linked. And now let's jump into the different sections for this website. So the my workflow is going to be the same as the previous project. In case you haven't watched the previous project and this is the first project on this channel that you're watching, the way that I suggest you start going through web development and creating websites is that whenever you want to create a project, you must have a certain workflow. So within that workflow is going to give you like a draft of that project. Now it is very difficult that you need to if you want to come up with that draft every time you want to create a website, be that for a personal use or for a commercial use. So you need to have certain workflow and you need to basically follow that workflow. The good thing about that workflow is that it is going to allow you to not waste a lot of time. So you're not going to waste a lot of time. You're just going to focus on the website at hand, and you want to get started with that website ASAP, as quickly as possible. So my workflow is going to be the same. We are going to have a bunch of sections, and then we are going to go ahead and create the layout for the website. After we're done with the layout, before actually we're done with the layout, we are going to come up with our custom classes, custom properties, and then we are going to come up with our layout. And after that, we are done. That is the workflow. So once you have this workflow, you can basically copy paste it for all of your projects. But because I'm teaching you, I cannot do copy paste, and I need to explain it in every video. And you can go ahead and basically grab that workflow and copy paste it. And in each project, if there is something that you need to change about those general styles or the layout, you can just go ahead and jump into that. You don't need to start from scratch every time you create a project. That's what I'm trying to say. So first off, I'm going to create a main, and I'm going to call it, this is going to be the main-container. Now, in this one, we are going to have all of our sections. So I'm just going to copy that comment, and I'm going to put it right here. So the first section is going to be the header of the website. The header of the website. The header is going to be a header that is going to have a class of header. Now, I'm just going to write in here header. I'm not going to do anything else. And I'm going to copy I'm just going to copy the comment. Let's come down. And let's paste that here. So the next section is going to be the hero section. This is a section that is going to have a class of hero, and I'm just going to write there hero. And then we are going to have a few more sections for which I'm just going to basically copy paste these. So there we go. Let's just provide a space, and we are done. So the next section after hero is going to be the work section. After that, we have features. Then we have contact. Okay, cool. Then we are going to have the team section. And finally, after the team section, we are going to have our footer. So I'm going to say footer, and the footer, we're going to use the semantic element that is footer. So let me just select that. This is the footer. Now let me go ahead and let me open it up with live server. Let's take a look at our project. All right, so here is our project. We have not done anything in the CSS. So we are done with the basic sections that I wanted to create in this lecture. So now I'm going to jump into CSS. Everything else that we do is going to be contained within the CSS. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide us with that reset. Let me just provide a few more hyphens. So this is first we are going to code the reset. There we go. So I'm going to say universal selector with all the before elements, and all the after elements. For all of them, we are going to say padding 0, margin 0, and we are going to say box sizing. Let's set the box sizing to border box. So we are done with the reset. I'm going to copy that comment. Next up, we are going to talk about general styles. So general styles. This is going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of styles in here that we are going to implement. And we are going to come up with styles for colors, for padding, font size, even font family. So we are going to create a bunch of custom properties, and we know that we have to create custom properties within the HTML element. And we could use HTML element, or we could use the root pseudo class. But in both ways, you're basically selecting the same element. It doesn't really matter. But root is a little bit fancier. That's why I'm going to use that. Now we are going to set the font size to 10 pixels. So the root element's font size is 10 pixels, and all other values, relative values, they're going to be 10 pixels in relation to the font size. So if I say width of any section, like let's say 10 rem, 1 rem by default it is going to be 16 pixels because it's in relation to the font size of the web page. But in this case, because the font size of the web page is 10 pixels, 1 rem is going to be 10 pixels. So next up, I'm going to create our colors. This is going to be the color palette. Now, because there are going to be a bunch of keywords that I'm going to be basically abbreviating, I need to basically provide the meaning for those abbreviations as well. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say M. M is going to stand for modified. Now, these abbreviations, they're going to be different in every set of custom properties that we are going to have. So for the colors, the M is going to have a different meaning. For the font size, the M is going to have a different meaning. Keep that in mind. That's why I'm documenting them. L is going to be light, and D is going to be dark. So these are our color palette. These are the terminology that we are going to use. Now, instead of writing all of the colors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically copy paste them because they're easy. We have talked about them a lot, and they're basically time consuming a lot. So in case, again, you have not watched my previous project, custom properties are unique CSS properties that you create, and there is no difference between a custom property that you create on your own that is basically a new property that the CSS doesn't have. And there is no difference between that and the regular CSS property, except for the double hyphens that you provide at the start of it. Custom properties are created because whenever we want to have reusable styles, we are going to use custom properties. And when we repeat styles, let's say in 100 places, it is easier to change them from our custom properties as opposed to going to those 100 places and changing them there. That is basically the ideology behind custom properties. So next up, we are going to have our padding. So I'm going to grab this comment. Just get rid of that space. Let's put that comment here. I'm going to say padding. So for the padding, we are going to have some terminology as well that we need to decode first, and then we can jump into padding. So for the padding, what I wanted to do initially was come up with a really large padding, but then I thought, okay, that padding is not going to be usable. Then I actually created that, but then I got rid of it, so I'm just going to not do that from the beginning. So XL in padding, it is going to be extra large. Then we are going to have L, which is basically going to say large. Let me copy that space. Then we are going to have M, which is going to say medium. There we go. S is going to say small. So S, when I say S in padding, it stands for small. And finally, we are going to have XS, which is going to stand for extra small. Let's save that. There we go. So now we are done with the terminology. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the padding. So I'm going to create a few of them, and the rest of them I'm going to copy paste. So I'm going to say padding dash extra large dash. Now there is something else that I need to provide here as well. I'm not really done with this. Now these terminologies, they refer to the sizing of the padding. So I'm just going to write here sizing. We also have orientation for the padding. So I need to provide that as well. So orientation. What does that mean? It means that if you see an H, okay, let's move forward. If you see an H, it means that it is padding horizontal. Horizontal. It means it is left and right, or right and left. And when you see V, that is going to be vertical. Now the vertical padding is going to be top and bottom. There we go. So now this is like a little bit more comprehensive. Let me just move it forward a little bit. Cool. So padding, we know that custom properties, the first name, it has to specify what kind of property it is that we are trying to create. So as with the colors, the first name, the first word within the property name, it defines colors, and the same thing happens here as well. So it is padding. Now after that, it is going to be the sizing of the padding. So it is extra large. And after that, we need to provide the orientation for the padding. So it is horizontal. Now when we are talking about horizontal orientation, it means that we are talking about viewport width, because that is horizontal. Now the minimum size for this padding is going to be 3 rem, but the maximum size, it's going to be 3 rem plus 6 VW. That is what actually this calc function means. Now we are going to have the same kind of padding for vertical as well. XL large, and instead of 6VH, we are going to say 6VW, we are going to say 6VH. VH is vertical. All right, let's move down. I'm going to say padding. So first, let's come up with the size. The size is going to be L. Orientation is going to be H. The actual unit is going to be 3 rem. So 3 rem is the minimum size. The maximum size is 3 rem plus 3 VW. And the same thing is going to be VH as well as V. There we go. So now that you know how you can create these, I'm going to copy the other ones to here. So we have M, horizontal, which is 2 rem, 2 VW, M vertical, 2 rem, 2 VH, S horizontal, 1 rem, 2 VW, SV, 1 rem, 2 VH, XS H, 0.5 rem, 1 VW, and XSV, 0.5 rem, 1 VH. So these are all the dimensions for our paddings. Next up, we are going to talk about font sizing. So I'm just going to copy that comment. I'm going to put it down here, and I'm going to say font size. There we go. So here is our font size. Now for the font size, we are going to have some terminologies as well. I'm not going to bore you with them. So I'm just going to basically copy paste them here. Let's just move them a little bit forward. There we go. So we have sizing, XL, extra large, large, medium, S, and XS. Now the sizing for the font is going to have two kinds. We are going to have 2 types of sizing. We are going to have dynamic sizing. Dynamic sizing refers to the kind of sizing that is going to adjust itself based on the viewport dimensions. So either viewport width or viewport height, which in our case it's going to be viewport width. And static sizing is going to refer to the kind of size that is going to stay the same, and stay the same no matter what size is the screen. So even if we are on a smaller screen, the size is going to be the same. If you are on a bigger screen, the size is going to be the same. Those are going to be static sizing. And then we are going to have two different font families, Montserrat and Varta. Two different fonts, one font family, both of them are sans serif. Now here is the terminology that we're going to use. Let's jump into the actual sizing. So first we are going to create the dynamic. So again, the first words, it has to specify what kind of property it is that we are creating. So it is font size. What is the nature of that font size? It is dynamic. And then what is the size? It is extra large. And then it is going to be calc 3 rem. This is the minimum size. The maximum size is 3 rem plus 3 VW. So this is the DXL. I'm going to copy paste the other ones. We have DL, which is going to be 2 rem plus 2 VW, DM, 1 rem plus 2 VW, and DS, dynamic small, which is going to be 1 rem 1 VW. This is what I meant by saying that this project is going to be a lot more comprehensive than the previous project of this tutorial series. There is a lot more customization, and after in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to tell you why did I go through all this trouble for you and just give you this awesome documentation for creating websites. I'm going to tell you the reason for that. Now I'm going to create one static font size as well. So font dash size. Now the shortcut for static is ST. I didn't want you to confuse that S for S small, so I just added the T as well, so it is static. So for static, we are going to have static large. Now because this is static, the value is also going to be static. So I'm going to say 3 rem. Here we go. And let me copy paste the rest of them. Here are our static files. And then we are going to have our font families. So all of these are a part of the font, not the font size, the font custom properties. Now, coming back to the reason why you need to come up with this kind of documentation or these kinds of like really cool organized patterns for your website is because partly it is that workflow that I talked about so much. And the second reason for that is that for every project, you're going to have different kinds of font sizes. You're going to have different kinds of paddings. Now, you will not use all of these paddings. There are like 10 different paddings for horizontal and vertical. You might not use all of them within this project, but I've created them anyway, because if you go to your next project, you might use the kind of padding, one padding that you've not used in this one. Because in case if you use padding uniformly for all of your projects, font size uniformly for all of your projects, font family uniformly for all of your projects, then all of your projects, all of your websites, they're going to look the same. That's the second reason that I've went through all this trouble and I've created these styles. Now there is one more thing missing in here, that is font weight. You could go ahead and add that within the font as well. That is a category of the font weight, providing different font weights based on what kind of font you're using. So you need to provide 100 all the way to 900. And then the nature, it could be regular or italic. So it is going to become a very comprehensive CSS code snippet that you can use for all of your projects. It is going to become a very reusable, a highly reusable component that you can use in all of your projects. And you don't have to start from scratch. When you have this, you know, okay, what you want to do. The only thing you need to focus on is actually creating the project and not wasting time on these little things, on these things. So let's move on to the body. For the body, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify a background color. Now, when we want to use the value for our custom property, we are going to use the var function. This is going to allow us to grab the value for our custom property, and then we are going to write the name of that custom property. Now for this body, we are going to use color primary. Let's save that. Let's take a look at that in our web page. So this is color primary. And then I'm going to provide a general font family as well. That is going to be var font family sub for the general. And let's provide a line dash height of 1.5. Save that. There we go. So we're done with the body. Next up, we are going to talk about the container for our website. So for that, I'm going to open up the inspect tool. We're going to go to responsive tab. I'm going to set it to 1500 and we're going to stay there. Cool. Jumping into CSS, I'm going to grab our main container, which is this main container. It contains the entire website. Everything is within here. So I'm going to use grid, display grid, and I'm going to provide a set of columns. So the number of columns, it is highly subjective. You can use no columns. You can use 10 columns, 2 columns, 20, 100. But keep in mind, the more columns you use, the more flexible, not responsive. Keep in mind, flexible your website is going to be, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult to control because as something that is flexible, it is a little bit difficult to control. And when it comes to creating websites, you need to have that control. So keep in mind to provide the number of columns as little as possible so your website will not break. So my suggestion would be like 8 or 10 or 12, no more than that. But in case you want to go crazy like I did for this project and you want to provide 16 columns, you can do that as well. So I'm going to say grid template columns. I'm going to say repeat 16 columns. The size or the width of the columns is going to be a minimum of min content and a maximum of 9.375 rem. Now, where is that value coming from? Let me show it to you. So whenever you're creating websites, there is a lot of things that you need to consider that I'm going to be honest with you. But when it comes to the layout of that website, the first thing that you need to keep in mind is what is going to be the size of that layout. I mean, not the vertical size. You never want to basically grab and fix that, the vertical size. You would want your content to decide that because then it is going to be practically impossible to make it responsive. So the only thing that you want to know about the size of your layout is, or the dimension is the horizontal size. So how far you want your layout to stretch. So when you're creating websites, you're going to have a certain limit. You cannot basically throw everything on the screen and hope for the best. No, that's not how it works. So you need to have a specific size for your website. Is your website 800 pixels in width? Is it 1000 pixels? Is it 1500, which in this case it is 1500? Or is it 2000? It is, I don't know. That is something that you need to come up on your own. And it doesn't really matter how big you go or how small you go. Just keep in mind that don't go that big that you cannot contain your website in your web page of your computer or your Mac or whatever it is you're working on. And then you basically need to zoom out. That is not good practice. Just make sure that the size of your website is the size of your web page. Now for me, the size of the web page is a little bit above 1500 pixels. But what I've done is I've selected 1500 pixels. The way that you can find this out is go ahead and open up the inspect tools. And when you go to HTML, you can see that it says 1500 pixels. So I'm going to get out of there and I'm going to go to HTML again. So the size for the width of my viewport that I can see in front of me, this white page, the width of that, the horizontal dimension, is 1536 pixels. Now, again, you don't care about the vertical or the height of your container. That is something that your content is going to decide. Don't decide that. Don't set like specific height 600 pixels. No. That is the worst thing that you can do. Just let your content decide that. That way you're going to come up with a fluid design, with a fluid layout. So your content has to decide that. But the width is 1536, and I've used it as 1500. So I'm going to use 16 columns. So I'm going to say 1500 pixels. And let's say you want to have 8 columns. So you're going to divide it by 8. So each column's width, this is any individual column's width, 187.5 rem. Each rem is 10 pixels. So I'm going to multiply it by 10. Okay. 187. Okay, what did I do wrong? So 1500 divided by 8. This is, this is not rem, this is just pixels. So 187.5 pixels. This is the width of every column within your container if you have 8 columns. But when I have 16 columns, I'm basically going to divide it by 16, and we're going to have 93.75 pixels width for one individual column. Now, because I'm using rem, one rem is 10 pixels, so I'm going to divide this by 10. I'm going to end up with 9.375. 9.375 is 93.75 pixels. 9.375 rem is equal to 93.75 pixels. That's how simple it is. So based on the number of columns that you have and the size of your layout, you're going to end up with some sort of width. Okay, so if you want to have, I'm just going to give you if you want to have 1300 pixels, like the width of the screen of your laptop is smaller, and you say, okay, my size for the layout of the website is going to be 1300 pixels, then that is the first thing that you need to decide, which is, you could say it is pre-decided for you. You can basically go ahead and take a look at your HTML. Just hover on it. It's going to tell you. Just round it off. For me, it was 1536. I just said 15. If for you it is 1350 or 1270 or whatever, just round it off to the number where it is whole. Like, it is easier to calculate. There is no other logic. So now you know that it is 1300 pixels, the width of your window, and you want to have, let's say, 12 columns. So you're going to divide 1300 pixels by 12 columns. You're going to have 108.3 pixels. Now, you could go ahead and write 108.3 pixels, or you could convert this pixel to rem. And if you want to convert that, you basically divide it by 10. So it is going to be 10.83 rem. The size of every individual column that you're going to have within your grid container. Now, these are the very important design choices that you need to take. And these are basically going to tell how your website is going to be laid out and whether or not it is going to be responsive. So for me, it's 1500 divided by 16 columns, 93.75 pixels, which is 9.375 rem. And I'm going to name the first line as main start. And the second line, or the final grid column line, is main dash end. Now, in case you have not watched my HTML tutorial series and you have not watched my the previous project for this tutorial series, just go ahead, and you need to be very good when it comes to grid to be able to create a website. Go ahead, go through the grid section of that tutorial series. There are just a few lectures, like maybe 20, 25 lectures, bite-sized lectures. And then after that, you can come in here, because when I create a project, I cannot possibly explain everything to detail. In that case, the project length is going to be maybe 20 hours, which is well beyond my scope, well beyond the scope of any project. So there we go. I just talked a lot there. So that was the columns. This is the number of columns. For the number of rows, we are going to count the number of sections that we're going to have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, I told you that you don't want to fix the height of your rows. You want your content. The height of the rows is actually the height of your container. So you want your content to decide that. That's why I'm going to say grid template rows repeat 7 min content. So as much as the content is, the minimum height required to show the content. That is going to be what we are going to do here. Now, I'm also going to justify the content, the entire grid to the center as well. Because there is that 36 pixels, which is going to be 18 pixels on the left and 18 pixels on the right. If I don't do this, all of the 36 pixels, they're going to be on the right, which doesn't look cool. So this is our main container where we are nearing the end of this video. For all the anchor elements, I'm going to say text decoration none. And for all the LIs that I'm going to use in this project, I'm going to say list style none, which is going to get rid of that bullet point. So next up, I'm just going to do one more thing. I'm going to copy that comment. I'm going to put it. Oh, there is actually one more thing that we need to do here as well. And that is we need to specify everything in its current, in its supposed layout. I'm going to do that as well. That is not going to take a lot of time. And then we are going to wrap this video up. So I'm going to say first we are going to have the header section. The header is going to have a class of header. We need to align it based on the grid container that we have created. So if I take a look at the grid container, here's our grid container, and everything is in one line, but we want it to be vertical, not in one line as with our project right here. So we want it to be vertical. So first I'm going to give it a phony height, which we are going to get rid of later. This is just to show where the section lies. And then I'm going to give it a background color as well. I'm going to say var color quaternary ML. So the grid column, I want all of my columns, all of my sections to start from the first grid column and end at the last one. So I'm going to say main dash start and main dash end. Let's save that. Let's come in here. So here is the header section. The height is fixed. We are going to get rid of that. But the height, the reason for the height is just because I wanted to know where this header actually is located. When we get to styling the header, we're going to get rid of the height. So I need to copy that a few more times. So this was the header. Next up, we are going to have hero section. For this, the background color, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color to MD. I could say MD. The alignment is going to be the same. After the hero, we have the work, and then we have the features. So this is work. The height is going to be 500 pixels. So let's go with color secondary. Then we have features. Okay, features. The height is the color is going to be tertiary. Let's save these. So you can see these are basically our sections, and we are going to style them one by one in our upcoming lectures. All right. After the features, what do we have? We have contact team. So I'm going to have a contact. The color is going to be quaternary. There is a bunch of colors in this one, all the way up to septenary. And then we have the team section, for which the color is going to be quinary. Save these. Let's take a look at them. So here is the header. Then we have, this is the hero, features, and all of the other sections. And finally, we are going to have our footer. So let's copy that. And let's put it right here. Copy, put it right here. And I'm going to have Control D, footer. For the footer, we could say color scenery. So here is our footer. So we need to have 7 sections. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So with this, our lecture comes to an end. So in this lecture, what we did was we created the general layout. We created our sections, the general layout, as well as the overall layout, to be more exact. And we also created our general styles. So now this is called the workflow. The way that you can utilize this workflow is just you can go ahead and copy this and use it for any project that you want. The only modifications that you will be doing is going to be within the colors You could maybe modify one or two very slightly, these paddings or the font size, and then you could use the 16 column project for all of your projects. You can come up with different number of columns. Now this number 7 within the template rows, it refers to a number of sections that you're going to have in your website. So if you have 7 sections, use 7. If you have 10 sections, change this to 10. And you need to have, when you have 10 sections, it means there are 7. So you need to add 3 more sections as well. So you don't have to like waste 1 hour, 2 hour, or like half a day coming up with all of these. It is in front of you, and you can go ahead and utilize it for any project that you want. So with this, our lecture comes to an end. In the next lecture, we are going to jump into coding the header, and after that, we are going to style the header. And this is how we are going to go, and we are going to move forward. So that's it for this video. See you in the next one.